Here at Paddy Power, we're the home of the Money Back Special, with some incredible offers every single week. Check out the website or app today. Terms and conditions apply. 18 plus begambleaware.org.
Hello there, and a very warm welcome to this week's Racing Post football postcast. Lots to get stuck into. The last week's football, the week ahead as well. Lots to get stuck into, and we're in good company. We've got Mark Langdon, Liam Flynn from the Racing Post. We've also got Emmett O'Keefe on the line from our friends at Paddy Power. We've got FA Cup, Champions League, bit of Premier League chat. Mark, where do you want to start?
Champions League. I'll always start Champions League, Dave. It was a really interesting couple of nights. We've seen a change at the top of the betting, with Man City being sort of overtaken by Barcelona, which I'm still not. I don't know if I totally agree with, and an Ajax team that we know that the person who usually sits in that chair, Bruce Millington, is on at 100-1. So I think he would have been quite excited by their performance against Juve. They were unlucky really to only draw 1-1, but I think they showed enough in that game to suggest it's not going to be a walkover for the old lady in Turin. And my boys, Tottenham Hotspur, putting up
Here we go.
Putting up a stirring effort. It was it was great. I mean, I didn't expect it. I didn't expect it to be as comfortable as what it was, really. I mean, I expected a tougher game from City. Once again, question marks being asked. Pep Guardiola, does he overthink these latter stages of the Champions League? I thought it was a bizarre team selection.
And that involved leaving out De Bruyne.
I mean, Bernardo, wasn't. He said he was injured, but I bet he's back soon enough. Fabian Delph just, struggles at left back. John Stones didn't play at centre half. He then leaves De Bruyne and Sane on the bench until the 89th minute. I mean, when Tottenham were getting tired, it was screaming out, I think, for Sane to sort of get those runs in behind. De Bruyne was only on the pitch a couple of minutes and probably did more than anybody else in that City midfield. Caused two situations. It was a bit of a weird one from Pep.
Well, let's get the latest prices then with Emmett from Paddy Power before we get Liam's view. Give us the latest show and what kind of shake-up there has been, please, Emmett.
Sure. So Barcelona are now favourites at 5-2, Liverpool 3-1, Man City 3-1, Juve 4-1, Spurs 14-1, Ajax 25s, Man United 33s, and Porto 200s.
4-1 Juventus now. Bruce will be getting moist with that, won't he?
No, wait, it's Ajax is on.
Ajax.
I mean, Ajax are 25s from what was 100-1. I mean,
can they win it, Mark?
Ajax?
Yeah.
I'm not sure they can. I mean, no, I don't think they will, because I mean they're going to have to get a high-scoring draw at least in Turin. Then they're probably going to have to beat Man City. Then they're going to have to beat, probably Liverpool or Barcelona in the final. I think that may be a step too far. It's just a shame that the side's about to be broken up, because De Jong's already off to Barcelona. De Ligt will definitely join one of the big guns as well. So, we haven't maybe got to see them at their absolute peak, which is a shame, but it's the way it is for Dutch teams.
Liam, what do we make of the week that we've just had in the world of Champions League?
Well, it was interesting, wasn't it? In the last round, I thought there were so many surprises, so many turnarounds. But for me this week, there weren't any standout surprises. I know you could argue maybe not everyone expected the Tottenham result, but it didn't really surprise me massively. Like we said, Ajax were so impressive against Juve. If they made the most of those early chances, it changes the complexion of the tie completely. If they got one or two on the board early, then it would have put Juve under real pressure. Ziyech and Tadic were excellent again. I thought Van der Beek, I haven't seen much of him, but in midfield last night I thought he was very impressive, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him attract the attention of a bigger side in the transfer window. So yeah, for me, Ajax very impressive, but like Mark says, I think it's quite sad that we're probably going to see that team pulled apart over the summer. Obviously De Jong and De Ligt, and then maybe players like Tadic or Ziyech might get a move as well. I also think at the top of the market, obviously we've seen Barca move up. I said at the start of the Champions League they're probably my pick. Going into the knockout stage is still my pick, and I still think there's a little bit of value about 5-2. To be honest, now they've got that away goal at Old Trafford. For me, the fact that they've obviously walked into that La Liga title. Whereas obviously you look at a Manchester City side, I think that's probably the edge maybe that Barca have over them, in the fact that they're not being stretched so much domestically. They can afford to really give everything to the Champions League. So I still think about 5-2, probably Barca a little bit of value there still.
So you don't fancy any more Man United heroics like we saw against PSG?
I don't think so, no, I don't. I think as we had with when Solskjaer first came in and was so impressive, there was an overreaction to that, and I do think there's been an overreaction to recent results about, the magic's gone, United are going to collapse or whatever. But even with that in mind, I think Barcelona's vulnerability has been away in Europe against bigger sides. Now they've got that out of the way. I can't see United doing anything in the new camp, especially if Messi is in the hits the form he's been in of late.
Mark, what are your thoughts on Barca and Man United? That one's surely game over.
I thought United were too timid in that game. I mean,
not a single shot on target.
They've taken the positives in that they contained Messi for large parts of the game. But in doing so, they forgot to attack themselves. And, the commentators on BT were, this is not a very good Barcelona performance. I expected more. I'm sitting there thinking, well, they're 1-0 up away from home in the Champions League quarter-final. The onus is definitely not on them here to try to get another goal. I mean, United, maybe because of the miracle in Paris, are thinking that they can do it again, and maybe they will. But, I think that in the last half an hour there, they needed to show more. And yes, you risk conceding the second goal, but, you give yourself... Because I think Barcelona were there for the taking, and United weren't brave enough. Just weren't brave enough. We haven't even spoken about Liverpool, how comfortable they had it against Porto. I mean, Emmett, you said there that you've got them now, sort of, they're not far off being sort of among the favourites, are they?
Yeah, they're joint second favourites with City. Yeah, it was interesting that I think I'd be very surprised if Liverpool didn't go through now. And just watching Barcelona last night, I think Liverpool have a real chance of turning them over if that's the semi-final tie that does happen. I think certainly Sergio Busquets, Rakitic, I think they're both kind of past their best. I think they might struggle against Liverpool's counter-attacks. As well, Suarez scores a lot of goals in La Liga, but I think we saw last night he's not the physical force of all. Chris Smalling, I think, kind of dominated him really, and I think United penned Barcelona in for maybe 60 minutes or so, but just didn't have enough quality. I don't think this team was set up really to attack, with Diego Dalot playing on his wrong side, kind of left wing. I would like to see maybe him play right back, and Lingard maybe play wide left, because I think too many United's attacks ended up with Ashley Young by himself trying to cross the ball in and kind of failing. But as in, I wouldn't expect United to go through, but I think Liverpool have a real chance of making the final.
Okay, well that's one to look forward to anyway, should those two sides meet. Before we leave and put the Champions League to bed, from each of you, your idea of the winner, Mark?
I still think Man City.
That's through gritted teeth.
Well, no, yeah. I think that it's more difficult than it was. But I look at that Juve and Ajax. If you've got Juve or Ajax in the semi-final, you're probably more comfortable than that Liverpool-Barcelona one. I think it's pretty clear that City are going to be stronger favourites to go through should they get there. Obviously, I'd love to see a Tottenham-Ajax semi-final, but I think that Man City could be the wake-up call that they need.
Liam?
I said Barca from the beginning. I'm going to stick with them.
And Emmett?
I'd probably lean Liverpool now at this point.
So we've got the front three covered.
Front three in the market covered. Right, let's move on then to the FA Cup. We now know that it's going to be Manchester City against Watford. And once upon a time, Watford were put up on this very postcast at 50-1 by the gentleman to my left, Mark Langdon.
Yeah, start of third round weekend. I mean, never in doubt, was it? 2-0 down with 11 minutes to go, probably a bigger price then than they were at the start. I mean, there wasn't much between them and Wolves. They didn't deserve to be 2-0 down, Watford, and then they maybe didn't do enough to win the game. It was a weird one. I thought it was always going to be close. I think they've got a small chance in that final, Watford. Obviously the each way's in there. I mean, I wouldn't give up completely on the outright. They've got in Deulofeu and Pereira. They've got players that can hurt City. Of course, City are going down the stretch in this Premier League title race. We don't know quite how that's going to end, but I think however it ends, it's taken a lot out of them. You know, the Champions League final is not until the 1st of June. The FA Cup final is immediately after the finish to the Premier League season. So, you know, they could have another sort of, you know, 2 Champions League semi-finals as well. So, I mean, I think Watford now can just put their whole season around giving Man City a decent game, and I'll probably on the day be going sort of Watford on the handicap. I think they'll be able to test City, whether it's enough or not, probably not. But I think they can give them a game.
What about the angle of maybe looking to oppose Watford in the league?
Yeah, I mean, I said the other week when Bruce was asking who we thought would sort of finish in the top 10, and I said you might be able, you know, it might be a good time to back sort of Watford not to finish in the top 10 in the hope that they do put everything into the FA Cup. I mean, it would make sense for them to do so. Maybe not straight away, but just those last couple of weeks before the end.
Those 50-50 challenges, thinking of
Deeney ain't pulling out of them, is he? But maybe some of the others. I mean, you'd want to rest a bit of Decore and Capoue between now and the end of the season. You know, juggle it up in terms of the back four as well. So I wouldn't be lumping on Watford to win too many of them games at the end of the season.
Emmett, what are the prices to lift the trophy? I'm sure Man City very short now.
Absolutely. Man City 1-10, Watford 6-1 at lift the trophy, and just the match price as well. City are 2-9, draw 9-2, Watford 10-1.
And how's the Paddy Power price for the Man City quadruple?
I think we're 4-1 at this point. Yeah, we're 4-1. I think it's. I think probably like the fixtures are now really starting to pile up for City at the moment. You've seen kind of like they're gonna when they play Spurs during the week, that'll be maybe 5 games in 17 days ish, and I think we possibly could see it starting to tell.
What price has that quadruple been with you? I'm sure it was a big price at one stage.
I was actually just looking at this. At the start of the season, we were not as big as 90-1 on the quadruple.
Wow, can it be done, Liam? I know you're in the Barcelona camp for the Champions League, but
I think if any squad could do it, it would be Manchester City with the depth they've got there in so many positions. But no, I wouldn't be backing that at all. I still think, obviously, we've like Mark said, I think the Tottenham game will act as a bit of a wake-up call to them. They kind of, like I think Mark said before the show as well, they did sleepwalk into that game. There's a string of easy games before that. So you maybe Man City fans could take a little bit of comfort in the fact that that moment where they lapsed came in a first leg of a Champions League game as opposed to in a Premier League game on a weekend, say, where Liverpool won or something like that, because obviously they still got the tie in their hands, still go back to the Etihad and they can overturn it.
I think that's why he picked the team he did, actually, because I think he always knew he had a second opportunity. And he
it's only half time.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe why he did pick that team.
But no, overall I wouldn't be backing that. I don't think they'll do the quadruple, but they could go close in all of them.
What's the liability like on that, Emmett, do you know?
Pretty high, yeah. It's been kind of consistently backed since Christmas, I would say.
Well, pants down for Paddy Power then, if that one goes in. Right, let's move on to the Premier League then, 'cause there were a few games over the weekend, Friday through to Monday. I'm just looking at the chap over your right shoulder, Liam, in behind there, and he put in a decent shift on Monday night.
Yeah, it was incredible, wasn't it? He's still, I know everyone keeps saying he's too good for Chelsea, and I would agree with that. I think the likelihood is he'll probably have a move in the summer, likely to Real Madrid. But it gives Chelsea great hope for this season. I think he's motivated. He'll want to continue. He'll want to keep his price tag up, if you know what I mean. He'll want to keep putting in good performances, push Chelsea into that top four. And when you've got moments of magic like that, then he can turn a game on its head. So I think that's what Chelsea have really got going for them in the race for the top four.
Mark, what are your thoughts over the weekend? And is the Hazard deal? I mean, the sounds are that it's almost deal done.
Yeah, I think he probably. There may even be an arrangement with Chelsea. That he stayed, given one more year. Difficult to deny him a move to Real Madrid. I mean, he's a foreign, but he's not like John Terry. He's got an association to the club. I mean, he's given them very good service, apart from that little downtime he had when Jose Mourinho was there, the sort of second time around. He's I think the best individual player in the Premier League. Probably has earned his move to Real Madrid. In terms of that top four, so tight, isn't it? There, I mean, Harry Kane's injury, a big blow for Tottenham in that department. Arsenal are really average away from home, as we saw again against Everton, and I'm not sure that United are playing well enough. So there's a good opportunity now. I mean, Chelsea, a couple of minutes before the end of that Cardiff game, they're probably thinking it's all over, and our only hope, or our best hope certainly, is to win the Europa League. Now they've got a couple of decent avenues. They've still got difficult away games to come at Liverpool and Manchester United, but with Hazard in that kind of form, it could be the difference.
There are a lot of big games left between the big sides in the Premier League. What we got? I think we've got 6 or 7 games left.
Yeah, I mean,
they've all got to play each other.
I mean, City have got Spurs and Manchester United. Chelsea, I've mentioned their games. Arsenal haven't got any of those fixtures against kind of the big 6, but they've got these. They'd probably rather play at home to somebody like Chelsea than away to somebody like Watford, if you know what I mean, because there just seems to be this psychological issue for them. Of course, there's Europa League for them and for Chelsea as well. So interesting to see, not at the moment, but just maybe in the next round if they get through, just how managers then start to think, well, hold on, are we better trying to win the Europa League than finishing in the top 4? So it's going to be very close. I think you'd probably be sort of...
I'm going to push you for it. So we've got Man City, Liverpool, whatever order you like. Who are the other 2?
Tottenham. I think they'll be able to cope with Kane's absence. Or that last one, I'll go Chelsea.
Liam?
Top 4, I'd have Liverpool top, ahead of City. 3rd, Spurs. 4th, I think Arsenal can just sneak it. I think the issue with Arsenal, the issue was that Everton game was such a big setback because Arsenal got, so, like Mark said, so many fixtures like that coming up where they've got, I think, Wolves and Watford away, Burnley away, I think as well. It was a prime opportunity, having gone into that game in a half decent run of form. If they could get some point, if they could have got at least a point at Goodison Park, then you're thinking, oh, maybe they're kind of overcome that sort of away psychological barrier. But that was a bit of a setback. But still, despite that, their running is easier on paper, and I think Arsenal might just sneak it.
Emmett, what about yourself? And I'm sure Paddy Power have got prices to finish in the top 4?
Absolutely. So top 4 finish: Spurs are 4-11, Chelsea 4-6, Arsenal 8-11, and Man United 11-4. Like the lads, I'd fancy Tottenham to come 3rd. But I could see Man United sneaking into 4th despite those relatively long odds. I think it's hard to judge these things, but I would question how fully together the Chelsea squad, and certainly obviously you saw the fans abusing Sarri in the Cardiff away game, and just their away results lately have been slightly alarming. So I'm a bit negative against them, and obviously I think they'll go deep into the Europa League as well. One thing for Chelsea is worth mentioning, that their most important match today isn't in Slavia Prague. It's at FIFA headquarters because they're appealing their summer transfer ban. And if they can't overturn that, or at least get it kind of postponed so they're allowed to make transfers this summer, I think they're in massive trouble. Because if Hazard's only a year left in his deal, so he likely leaves. Callum Hudson-Odoi, I think, is 1 year left in his deal as well, so they're in a bad position there. And if Hazard were to leave and no one were to come in, like, it'd be very, very hard to fancy Chelsea to get close to top 4 next year, I would say.
That would be amazing, Mark, wouldn't it? If
they
let him go and then couldn't bring anyone in.
Well, I mean, that's why they bought Pulisic. But I mean, in terms of, he's got a lot to prove in terms of filling Hazard's boots. I mean, there's potential there, but you want him playing sort of understudy for Hazard for a year. But I mean, like I said, I don't think Chelsea are in a position where you can let Hazard's contract run out. I mean, that's probably what 100 million euros you're burning there. I mean, they sold Courtois. I think they'll probably have to sell Hazard.
And when is that, Emmett? That showdown with FIFA?
The hearings today, and then I think the verdict's expected next week. And then if they lose, I think they can appeal to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. So there could be a bit of legal wrangling to be done for the next few weeks.
Wow, yeah, that is a big battle for Chelsea to face. Right, anything else to add that caught the eye over the last week or so, lads? Or should we jump straight into the Friday night game?
Let's get into Friday night football.
Let's do it then. Friday night football it is. Leicester City at home to Newcastle. Prices with Paddy Power, please, Emmett.
Sure. So Leicester 4-6, the draw is 11-4, and Newcastle 4-1.
And how do you see this one?
I kind of like Leicester here. I think I think Newcastle will definitely be well organised as usual and difficult to break down. But since Rodgers has taken over, Leicester look a team at a higher level than Newcastle. Newcastle, I was just watched them against Arsenal there recently away from home. They find it very hard to get out when teams press them. They don't really have much forward passing in midfield, especially now that John Joe Shelby's been out of favour in the second half of the season. I expect Leicester to kind of own the ball here and have too much class for Newcastle, so I'd play it safe at Leicester 4-6.
4-6 odds on Leicester for Emmett.
Yeah, I agree. 1-5 of their last 6. Leicester. Vardy's got 8 in 8. Got a lot of creativity behind him. With that sort of 4 that they've got with Tielemans and Maddison, Barnes and Gray. I really like Ndidi as well. In sort of holding it all together. Pereira and Chilwell as your fullbacks. I mean, that's pretty high standard. They've got some hard games left, but I mean, Leicester I think they will be concentrating and trying to finish 7th. Newcastle were very unlucky against Crystal Palace. Definitely didn't deserve to lose that game. Probably should have won. But it's only 1 win in 10 away games, and that was at Huddersfield. So they'll probably be looking to their home form to keep them up.
I was going to say, where do you think they'll finish this year, Newcastle?
I think they'll stay up. I mean, there's very little between a lot of them sort of teams. So, I mean, 15th, 16th.
Okay, right. So 2 votes for Leicester. Liam, what about yourself?
I'll go for the draw Leicester double result. I think you look at Brendan Rodgers breathed life into that. Leicester's top 7 pursuit this season. But interesting little statistic. They've scored 31 goals in the second half this term compared to 15 first half goals. We obviously saw that trend continue against Huddersfield. 3 of their 4 goals in that game came after the break. And we know how Newcastle set up. Rafa Benitez are very set up with that back 5, defensively disciplined. Had a clean sheet at the break in matches with Bournemouth and Palace. So I think they could go into the break with that game possibly goalless. But then I think the attacking quality of Maddison, Vardy, Barnes, etc. Could be too much in the end. So yeah, draw Leicester double result.
Excellent stuff. Right, let's move on to the next televised Premier League game, 12:30 kick-off on Saturday. Probably a tough game to price up, I'd imagine, Emmett. A Tottenham side without Harry Kane, who's obviously injured, and an already relegated Huddersfield. Yeah,
absolutely. Tottenham 1-6, the draw 11-2, and Huddersfield 13-1. The only thing about the Harry Kane be missing is that Spurs' stats without him this season and in previous season are pretty good. I think the points total that they gain with and without are nearly equal, maybe slightly even more without.
An amazing stat, that one, I think.
The only thing I would say is that I think Spurs' other attackers are really, really good. And I think Son Heung-min especially is a better player when Kane doesn't play. Especially if he plays centrally as a striker, I think he's close to world class, to be honest. And so I think, and Lucas Moore's obviously come back into form. I think Dele Alli is a huge talent as well. Even though I think he sometimes could do with getting more touches when he's playing the number 10 position like he was during the week. And obviously Eriksen's a big talent as well. So I think that front 4 is so strong that I think they will be able to cope without Kane.
I noticed that you didn't mention Llorente there.
Absolutely, yeah. He's obviously not on that level, but I think just looking at a bet for the weekend, I think you're probably best looking at one kind of maybe an each way goal scorer, and it's whoever. I think maybe at the moment Dele Alli's 13-2 to score first. I think that's a decent each way bet. If he's playing, he'll be playing off the striker, or maybe even as the lone striker, possibly. So I think that's probably the way I'd look.
Mark, go and have a guess at the Tottenham lineup for this one.
Well, it's really, really interesting. I mean, does he pick a sort of League Cup team and try and save everything for the Champions League? If you do that and you don't pick up maximum points against Huddersfield, you're probably not going to finish in the top 4. I suspect he'll probably rotate the fullback, so you'll probably like to see Kyle Walker-Peters. I mean, if Aurier's not back, Walker-Peters and Davis will be the 2 fullbacks. I would expect at least one of the Belgian centre-halves to be rested, Sanchez to come in, maybe even both with Foyt. The midfield, he hasn't got too many options in there. Maybe Wanyama comes in for one of Winks or Sissoko, but I think he'll play most of them big guns up front because you need to win the game and you haven't got that many options. So Dele Alli finished the game up front against Man City, and that's actually how they scored the goal. He held it up, Eriksen flicked it out to Son. I mean, one bookmaker's going 11-2 Son. I mean, there's no chance in the world that that's going to last until kick-off. But I was just looking at, because I don't know. You don't know who's going to play up front.
Yeah.
It could be Ali, it could be Son, it could be Lucas, or it could be Llorente. I just couldn't back any of them with any kind of confidence. And also from the each way point of view, if they do get in front, it's probably going to take them off as well. So I was just looking at a routine Tottenham win. I thought 2-0 may be the way to go. I mean, Huddersfield have lost 18 of their last 20 matches in the Premier League. I mean, they are a very poor side. I just don't think Tottenham need to be pushing the boat out here in terms of sort of, giving them a right good thumping. Also, I mean, Vincent Janssen's been back in training. I don't know.
Wow.
He could be one. I mean,
It's probably not even priced up.
There's a lot of Spurs fans that would like to see the Irish youngster Troy Parrott, who's absolutely tearing up for the under-18s. I mean, Poch likes to give his young
Surely this
guns
would
a
be
go,
a great
but
opportunity.
I don't think so. I'm not sure he's quite ready for this one. So, I mean, you'd be a bit nervous at backing Spurs at 6-on if it was Wanyama and Skip in central midfield and Llorente as centre forward. So I would wait for the team news, but even if they don't start with the big guns, if they have to bring them on, they can probably get the job done. So 2-0.
And what was that, the young lad's name?
Troy Parrott. I mean, I don't know. Emmett might. I mean, there's quite a bit of excitement about him. Certainly at Tottenham, he got another 2 goals against Chelsea yesterday for the under-18s. He looks a big talent.
I was going to get you to try and say it again, but I won't.
Sorry, Dave.
Liam, what do you like in this game? 6-on Tottenham?
I like the look of Spurs to win 2-0. It's the ideal fixture for them, really, isn't it? After a very testing Champions League game with Manchester City, yet to concede in their new stadium, and I think it's really important. They've got off to a good start there. Huddersfield have only scored 19 goals all season. I think their front line, they've only scored 5 between them. Spurs pretty comfortable in these kind of games. I think they've won 7 of their 8 meetings with bottom 5 opposition this season. Kept clean sheets in 3 of those, including the reverse fixture with Huddersfield. So I think it'll be quite routine. I'll go Spurs win 2-0 about evens, I think.
Okay, Mark, quickly on the new stadium, thoughts on that? Is
I
it
went
any sort of
against
factor as well?
Went against Crystal Palace. No, it's just the fact of the matter is that when you get inside it, apart from the size, it actually feels like White Hart Lane. So I don't think there's any adjustment. Player routine's exactly the same as what it was before. So it's not quite a new stadium bedding in, like you sometimes get. So it's absolutely fine. And all the goals actually have been scored so far in front of that sort of big stand that they're looking to suck the ball in, and I think it makes a little bit of a difference. I mean, it's just better than Wembley, isn't it? That's the main thing.
Okay, right, good stuff. We've got plenty more games to get stuck into this weekend. Do stay with us. We're going to head for a quick break.
Right, 10 seconds to promote Paddy Power Games. Paddy Power Games, Paddy Power Games, Paddy Power Games. Advertising. It's easy when you know how. Paddy Power. Enough of the nonsense. 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
Welcome back to the Racing Post football postcast. We've tackled the Friday night game, the 12:30 kickoff on Saturday. Now we're going to rattle through the 3 p.m. kickoffs on Saturday in the Premier League. Emmett O'Keefe on the line from Paddy Power. We'll start with you. Brighton at home to Bournemouth. A quick line on what you fancy here as well as the prices, please, Emmett.
Absolutely. So Brighton are 13-10, draw 9-4, and Bournemouth 21-10. Both teams are obviously in very poor form. Brighton have only scored 11 goals in what's considered open play in the Premier League, which is 19th, just ahead of Huddersfield, with 15 of their 26 goals come from penalties and set pieces. At Bournemouth, they're conceding over two goals a game on average away from home. So hard to have confidence in either team. The way I'd look here would be Brighton to win 1-0. It's clicked in 5 of Brighton's 9 Premier League wins, and I can see this game being pretty tight. So 13-2, I think that's a reasonable bet.
Is this some sort of derby, Mark?
No, not
South
really.
Coast derby?
I think there is some kind of corny line for it, but it's not really. I mean, there's way too far really between the two of them. I think a draw is the way I'll be going. Brighton have only won 3 of their last 16 in the Premier League, and Bournemouth have only won 6 times since the October international break, and half of those were against Huddersfield and Fulham, 2 rank out of form teams. And I think Brighton will just be looking any point's a good one really at the moment for them.
Okay, Liam?
I'd just go for Brighton in this game. I've not been impressed by Bournemouth at all, really, since the turn of the year. They had a pretty much full strength team out, I'd say, against Burnley, and they were comfortably beaten. I think Begovic and Mepham, it was just calamitous really at the back. Only Fulham have lost more away matches than Bournemouth this season. And I think it does get to that stage of the season where you think how much teams have to play for. The relegation, is it already sorted in the Premier League? Perhaps maybe Cardiff are pretty much nailed on, but Brighton probably have a little bit more to play for than Bournemouth, and Chris Hughton knows how to set his side up to be organised and disciplined, and they weren't disgraced in that FA Cup semi-final against City either. So yeah, Brighton for me.
Okay, right, let's move on then to Burnley at home to Cardiff. Fancy this one could be a little bit lively, Emmett. How do you see it?
Yeah, so Burnley 4-5, the draw 5-2, and Cardiff 7-2. As you say, I think it's a hugely meaningful game for both sides, which I think could contribute to a more kind of positive game than you might expect between these two teams. So I kind of like both teams to score here, 10-11. Both teams actually, despite what you might think, have conceded over 60 league goals this year. And because Cardiff need at least the draw to have a realistic chance of staying up, I think they'll really go for it, which could lead to being a more open game.
Okay, what about yourself, Mark?
I can't back Burnley odds on in the Premier League game. It just doesn't feel right. I was looking at the second half to be the highest scoring. I mean, Cardiff 5 points from safety, 8 points off Burnley. There's no need for them to go gung-ho early on in this game necessarily, but at some stage I think it has to open up, and that's where I'm expecting the goals to come.
Okay, Liam?
Yeah, I agree with Mark. I wouldn't back Burnley odds on. Quite obscure bet, but I like the look of Dwight McNeil to score first, about 10-1 each way, I'd say. It's a value bet really. He's been a live wire on the flank for Burnley this season. 6 shots in his last 3 games, scored against Leicester and Wolves, and likely to be going head-to-head with veteran Lee Peltier at the back for Cardiff. I think he could cause him a bit of trouble down that flank. So yeah, in a tricky game to call, I'd like Dwight McNeil to score first each way.
I like that one. A lot. Right, let's move on then to Fulham at home to Everton, please, Emmett.
Yeah, so Fulham are 7-2, the draw is 11-4, and Everton are 4-6. Having kind of slated them on the previous podcast I was on, Everton have actually since produced, I think, their best football of the season, beating Chelsea, dominating both West Ham and Arsenal.
They were very good at West Ham. I was at that game, very good.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the stats. I think they were 2.6 on the expected goals. West Ham were like 0.2. So
all right, you didn't have to go there. But yeah.
sorry.
They were very good, yeah.
Anyway, they should have beaten Arsenal by more than the 1 goal. Dominic Calvert-Lewin up front's made a huge difference. His work rate running in behind, and Bernard, Andre Gomez and Seamus Coleman have been pretty impressive lately. Having said that, I'm hesitant to trust them at these short prices away from home. Fulham obviously lost 9 on the bounce, but they've had a pretty tough fixture list since Scott Parker's taken over. So reluctantly, I'll take a flyer on Fulham double chance here at 5-4.
Mark, Everton, the ever enigma.
Yeah, I mean, but they've won 4 of their last 6. The other 2 were a draw against Liverpool, which I think is a good result. And the other game, they were 2-0 up at Newcastle and then chucked it away. Fulham have lost 12 of their last 13 matches. Have almost been as bad as Huddersfield in terms of results, maybe not necessarily all of their performances. I mean, I can hear what Emmett's saying about the tough fixture list, but that Watford game before the FA Cup final, FA Cup semi-final, was an opportunity for them, and they've got beat 4-1. I'm not sure there's any spirit or just anything left there, so I think Everton are fair enough.
Scotty Parker got his hands full. What about yourself, Liam?
Yeah, I go Everton as well. I think they've turned a corner under Marco Silva. Like Emmett said, they should have scored more than once against Arsenal. The only threat Fulham really pose is probably in the form in the final third, and Alexander Mitrovic. But Everton have been so disciplined at the back recently. Clean sheet against Liverpool, clean sheet against Arsenal. Whereas Fulham, just conceding 76 goals is absolutely horrendous. I know Scott Parker's had a difficult run of games recently, but I think it could be quite tough to motivate that group of players with so much uncertainty heading into the summer. So yeah, I'll go Everton.
Okay, lots of love for Everton in the studio. Here, right, the other 3 o'clock game, the Saints at home to the Wanderers of Wolverhampton. Emmett, how do you see that one?
Yeah, so Southampton 6-4, the draw 21-10, and Wolves 15-8. I was really impressed with Southampton last week against Liverpool. It's well documented how they've improved since Ralph Hasenhüttl took over from Mark Hughes. I thought they were really the better team for 60 minutes until Liverpool kind of penned them in and Shane Long came off, which they didn't have as much of an outlet ball then. I was really impressed with Højbjerg in midfield. His athleticism and ability to run with the ball in central midfield is pretty rare. Yeah, you don't often see it in the league. I've no strong preference here, but I'd go with both teams to score. It's clicked in 9 of 10 Southampton home games since Hasenhüttl took over, and both teams I think don't have that much to play for. Like Southampton are fairly safe. I think this will be an open enough game.
What price is both teams to score?
So it's currently 5-6.
5-6. The obvious angle here, Mark, would be looking at the morale now at Wolves, having lost that semi-final.
Yeah, I mean, I think they obviously need to pick themselves up. I still think finishing 7th and probably Europa League is a lure. A lot of people sort of talk it down, but I think particularly for foreign coaches, to get into the Europa League is seen as maybe more of a big deal than what it is for the British coaches. I was looking at the draw in this game. Southampton have only lost 4 matches in the Premier League in 2019, and 3 of those were Arsenal, Man United and Liverpool. So, I mean, they have definitely improved. Wolves have only won 2 of their last 8 away matches as well. So I think that's maybe the area for them to sort of look upon for next season if they want to try to sort of get closer to that big 6. But they're still a good side, and we saw that for 75 minutes at Watford in the FA Cup last week. So I think this could be a close encounter, and like many of the 3 o'clock games, could be quite tight. So I'll go draw.
What about yourself, Liam?
Also going for a draw in this one. Yeah, I think it's exactly the kind of game that Wolves tend to struggle with. They're a better team when they can use their wing backs. They can hit teams on their counter attack, and they tend to struggle when they get a lot of the ball. And Southampton have had inferior possession in each of their last 6 matches, so the chances are Wolves are going to have quite a lot of the ball. I think sometimes they struggle to work out how to break down teams. I don't know if they've got that midfielder who can sort of make that incisive pass necessarily. There could be a bit of a psychological knock from the FA Cup as well. I think Southampton nearly over the line in the relegation battle, unlikely to completely overexert themselves.
Huddersfield at home, haven't they, on the final
Yeah,
day, so
exactly.
They'll almost be adding 3 to that total.
Yeah, so I think, they can afford to just take a point from this game and move on. And I believe they've drawn more Premier League games than any other side this season. So I'll go with a draw, Southampton versus
Okay, all 4 3 o'clock games do look tight. Might have a little draw Yankee myself there. Right, let's move on then to a game I'll be watching probably from behind the sofa. Manchester United at home to West Ham at 5:30. Emmett, give us some prices with Paddy Power, please.
Sure. So Man United 4-11, the draw 7-2, and West Ham 13-2. It's in. I think West Ham's last 4 games are obviously been awful. They were hammered by Cardiff. They scraped past Huddersfield, who are obviously one of the worst teams in Premier League history. Battered by Everton, and they were a bit better against Chelsea, but still Chelsea more comfortable probably than the scoreline suggested. So they're hard to trust. United obviously have the Barcelona game midweeks, but even if United do rotate, I think some of the players like some Martial, Lingard, etc., be looking to hopefully play for a place during the week. I'd have a tentative play at Man United -1 at evens, just because how poor West Ham have been, and again they don't have that much to play for. So I'll go at Man United -1.
Yeah, I know Man United have obviously got bigger fish to fry, but I think they might be a little bit shorter than 4-11, Mark.
No, I don't. I mean, you saying there about a draw Yankee, maybe you should up it to a draw Canadian. Day. I'm going for another draw here. I mean, it is a game, I think, if you do oppose Manchester United, you're just hoping that West Ham show more than what we've sort of seen. But it's more just a case of being against Manchester United. They had a hard game on Wednesday against Barcelona. They were really not very good against Watford or Southampton in sort of previous Premier League home matches. I mean, Southampton should have had a penalty, scored a couple of goals. Watford absolutely dominated them on the shot stats, and I don't think they could believe that they lost. Even Solskjaer said afterwards, it wasn't a very good performance. Ashley Young and Luke Shaw both suspended, which leaves them a little bit vulnerable in the fullback positions. I thought West Ham were better in the second half when he was too attacking in the first half, so had no control. When he put Arnautovic up front and then Lanzini and Anderson in the wider positions and just the extra body in midfield with Snodgrass, I thought they improved and got into the game more, and ultimately they were done by an absolutely brilliant piece of skill by Eden Hazard. Now, they didn't play well, West Ham, but without that moment of absolute brilliance, they probably go in at 0-0, and it could have been a nervous game for Chelsea. I mean, West Ham maybe have down tools, I don't know, but
I think the 2 key players are Arnautovic and Lanzini. And
I thought they showed a bit more in the second half.
Yeah, he don't look fit to me.
No, but Arnautovic, when he put Arnautovic up front, it seemed like Arnautovic suddenly decided he was going to start playing again. And this is the type of game away to Manchester United, a team where he probably thinks he should be playing for, that he may just turn it in. I'll turn it on rather than turn it in. I mean, he usually turns it in. I just can't back Man United at 4-11 to beat sort of a mid-table Premier League team.
You filled me with a little bit of hope there, Mark. We are woeful, but how do you see it, Liam?
I'm afraid I'm going Man United and both teams to score. I think West Ham have been a bit of a sort of the Jekyll and Hyde of the Premier League this season, but I think you pretty much know what you're going to get with them in this kind of game. They've lost all 4 of their visits to top 6 teams this season. That said, they had 9 attempts against Chelsea. We just had they've got attacking weapons in Arnautovic and Felipe Anderson as well. So they could hit United on the counter. I think they could get a goal. Still some defensive vulnerabilities for United there for me. But as I said earlier, I think there has been, as there was an overreaction to when United were performing well under Solskjaer, I think there's been a touch of an overreaction to slight dip in form recently. You look, started obviously with that defeat at the Emirates, and I have to say, to be fair, I don't think that result was reflective of their performance in that game. They probably deserved to get something out of it. And they suffered defeats to a Wolves team that are designed to play against these bigger clubs and beat these bigger sides. So I think that they can get back on track with a win here.
Okay, right, that's the Saturday games all wrapped up. We'll move on to, we've still got 3 live games to get stuck into this weekend, as well as the lads' best bets of the weekend as well. Join us after this break.
Friends, or maybe more. Earn a 20 quid free bet for every friend you refer to Paddy Power, thanks to our Friends with Benefits programme. Log in to your Paddy Power account and share your referral link to get started. Terms and conditions apply. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org.
Welcome back to the Racing Post Football Postcast. We're going to get stuck into the 2:05 p.m. kickoff on Sunday, which is Palace at home to Manchester City. Emmett O'Keefe on the line from our friends at Paddy Power. Hit us with some prices, Emmett, and your view on this one.
So with Palace at 9-1, the draw 9-2, and Man City 1-4. I think this is a dangerous game for City. I think, as I was talking about previously, this is their 4th game in a couple of weeks. Palace, as we know, I think are much better as a counter-attacking team and playing without the ball, which is what they'll have here. They're 7th in the league in the away league table and 18th at home, but this won't be like a normal home game for them. And then obviously the Spurs Champions League game, which is, I think, if you offered Guardiola, would he rather win the Premier League or the Champions League? I think he'd definitely take the Champions League. I think that's their priority. So there's a possibility they might look past Palace a little bit. I think, and even if they do win, Palace +2 at 5-6 appeals as a bet, because I think even if City do win, there's a good chance it'll be by just a solitary goal. So that's the way I'd be looking here. One last thing as well is that Eden Hazard and Wilfried Zaha are by far the 2 most fouled players in the league. Zaha has been fouled 89 times, and that's season 2nd. Richarlison 3rd on 67, so way ahead. I think Zaha will probably start on the left here against Kyle Walker. So if that happens, Walker would be worth a look in the bookings markets when teams come out.
What price is it? Have you got a price yet for that?
We don't have a price yet. I'd say it'd be about 4-1, 9-2.
Looks a fair price, that one. Mark, this is a dangerous game for City.
Yeah, of course. It's a massive day in the title race, because you're looking at it thinking this is an opportunity for City to slip up. And then Liverpool take on Chelsea, where in terms of like the difficult fixtures left, it's really this one. I know
Proper Super Sunday, this one.
Yeah, it is. And of course, if City don't win, then imagine the atmosphere at Anfield come that 4:30 kickoff. I mean, it will be absolute bedlam on Merseyside. So it's a really big game. Man City have not covered their handicap in their last 5 Premier League matches. They are not the punter's friend anymore. Earlier on in the season when they were winning 5s and 6s, that sort of spell around just after they lost to Palace and Leicester, they were battering teams. That's not happening anymore. I think they are trying to conserve energy for what they've got left, and I think that they're playing almost within themselves as well. But they've only conceded 1 goal in the last 7 Premier League games. Very tight defensively because they keep the ball so well. I'm looking here a bit like what Emmett was saying. I can see it being a narrow sort of City win maybe. So Man City to win by 1 would be one option, or Man City to win and under 3.5 goals would be another one. I feel like I'm tipping that up quite a lot at the moment. I tipped it when they beat Brighton 1-0. I tipped it actually under 4.5 against Fulham. They didn't kick on in any of those games when I think earlier on in the season they would have done.
Just purely because it's not necessary.
It's not necessary, and Guardiola takes a 1-0 here all day long, given the busyness of the fixture list. So this is a tricky one for City.
Liam, how'd you see it?
Perhaps a bit of a bold call, but I think the price enticed me here. Palace draw double chance at 5-2. I think is pretty big. Obviously, like I said, City they sleepwalked into that Tottenham game. Might have woken them up a bit, but if anything stops them from winning the Premier League title, I think it'll be complacency. Palace obviously won at the Etihad earlier this season, and I wouldn't rule them out doing the double. They were outplayed, as Mark said, by Newcastle, but they took their chances. I think they were a good counter-attacking side. The likes of Schlupp, Zaha, Townsend could cause City problems in those wing-back positions. We saw obviously Delph was kind of at fault for that goal against Tottenham, and Palace beating Tottenham in the FA Cup, put 4 past Leicester, pushed Liverpool close. At Anfield as well, so I think that's quite good value. So Palace draw, double chance.
Just by saying, I think Tompkins sounds like he could be out. I mean, so that's a problem for them with Sacco, who's already out. So that's the vulnerability really for Palace at the heart.
Just quickly, Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot again and name the team with Man City. Who do we expect here?
I think Ederson in goal. I think it'll be. I reckon it might be Kyle Walker and Danilo as the 2 fullbacks. Stones and company, maybe, or maybe Stones and Laporte at centre half. I think in terms of the midfield,
De Bruyne, we've seen De Bruyne.
Yeah, we definitely see De Bruyne. You'll see Bernardo come back. I reckon Sane will start, and I think Gabriel Jesus will be up front. I'm not sure.
Strong.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, he can't pick a bad team. I mean, it'd be Gundogan or Fernandinho with probably De Bruyne, or maybe all 3 of them in midfield. Bernardo, if he's back, and Sane on the wings. Might give Sterling a little rest, maybe. He's played quite a bit recently.
Okay, right, let's move on then to a whopper at 4:30. Liverpool at home to Chelsea.
Yeah, so we've Liverpool 4-7, the draw 11-4, and Chelsea 9-2. As I mentioned earlier, I think Chelsea are hard to trust away from home. In their last 6 away games, they've lost 2-0 to Arsenal, 4-0 to Bournemouth, 6-0 to City, beat Fulham 2-1 and could easily have drawn that game, beaten by Everton 2-0, and then were hugely fortunate to beat Cardiff there recently. I'm not sure the squad are fully behind Sarri, and the fans certainly aren't. So the way I played here would be Liverpool half-time, full-time. It's clicked in Liverpool's last 4 home games. And since the away draw in the Merseyside derby, they seem to be pressing high and playing a bit more aggressively at home. So I think that's currently backed at 13-8. Also, no team has scored more goals from set pieces than Liverpool in the Premier League this season, and Chelsea are bottom 5 in defending set pieces. So, as an angle, that's worth a look. Maybe Virgil van Dijk is worth a flyer at first goal scorer, bigger than 20-1 if you can get it.
Good start. Liverpool would love to give Chelsea a pasting here, Mark, wouldn't they?
Well, of course, this was the game. It was actually both these fixtures when Gerrard slipped against Chelsea and
Palace City as well.
Palace played City won at Palace later on. The times were reversed. So it was Liverpool Chelsea earlier, and then City. I think it was Yaya Toure won at Palace, and then that sort of pushed them up. That and ultimately was the league title sorted. So they would. I mean, there's no love lost between the 2 sets of supporters. No. All those Benitez Mourinho matches. From down the years, the ghost goal of the Champions League semi-final and whatnot. And they've played in a lot of big games against each other. Chelsea's away record is terrible. At Anfield, though, they're unbeaten in 8. Not many teams can say that. Against that, Liverpool are unbeaten in 37 at home in the Premier League. The Chelsea, when they played in the Cup final against City, that is, if they play like that, I think it's a difficult game for Liverpool. I'm just not sure, a bit like what Emmett was saying, I'm not sure if they will play like that. And some of them players, will they be there next season? This is an opportunity to maybe chuck Sarri under the bus if they wanted to. I find this a really difficult game to call. I'm going to split my stakes on correct scores of 2-1 and 3-1 Liverpool. I'm not sure they're defending quite as well as what they were earlier on in the season. I think Matip's maybe getting caught out once or twice, but that Chelsea defence in big matches away from home has collapsed on more than one occasion.
Liam, this could be a lively one. How'd you see it?
Yeah, well, it's such a difficult game to call in terms of title race and top four, but that's why I'm probably going to go with both teams to score, I think. Liverpool's title pursuit up to this point has been sort of built around that watertight defence, but as Mark said, they've conceded in each of their last 4 games. That's included 3 relegation candidates in Burnley, Fulham and Southampton in that run. Chelsea's, sort of that new look front three, Hazard, Higuain, Hudson-Odoi obviously causes problems. They can certainly create problems, and we know how prolific Liverpool's attacking sort of trifecta are: Salah, Firmino and Mane, and obviously Salah getting that goal against Southampton should have done his confidence the world of good. So it's such a big match, and I think for that reason it's backing goals for me could be the way to go.
Okay, good stuff. Right, we're nearly at the lads' best bets of the weekend. One more game, Emmett, and that's on Monday night. Watford at home to Arsenal.
Yeah, so Watford 11-5, the draw 13-5, and Arsenal 11-10. It's a tricky game to call here. You'd have to expect Jared Deulofeu to replace Andre Gray in the Watford starting lineup after last week's heroics. But it's certainly not ideal, I think, for Arsenal to be playing on a Monday night before a Thursday trip to Napoli. Presumably, the first leg that's been played this evening will be pretty tight, so it's hard to. So they'll almost certainly need a positive result going to Italy. So it's hard to know what kind of a team they'll pick for this game. Xhaka and Koscielny might come back from injury, and that would be a help. But Arsenal's away record is absolutely awful, and watching them against Everton, they performed extremely meekly. And with the fixtures piling up, I think it's hard to have much faith in them. Watford have nothing to play for, don't have much to play for, but I'd probably lean Watford here at 11-5.
Mark, this is a tricky one.
Yeah, I don't think it is actually. No, I just lay Arsenal and get with Watford or draw double chance. I mean, what have we seen from Arsenal that suggests that they're a good thing at 11-10 to win this game? The highest placed team they've beaten away from home is Bournemouth. Time and time again, they've even in sort of some of when they were playing a bit better in some of them away games, they just don't seem to turn up. Even when they've won at places like Cardiff, it was a right old struggle. Huddersfield was a struggle for them when everybody else sort of Big Six goes there, just rolls them over. So, I mean, apart from the first minute when Lacazette went through against Everton, I mean, at no stage did they look like getting back into that game. It was a terrible performance, an absolute 1-0 battering, really. Maybe something will click and they'll show up, but until they do it, I can't back them at 11-10 to win a game like this. A Watford team that probably were on the town for a couple of days afterwards, but they've had a big old break. The game's not until the Monday. I mean, if anything, there'll just be huge excitement around Vicarage Road about them getting to a cup final. There's no reason to rest and rotate players yet. I mean, maybe when they get towards the end of the season, bit of bad blood between the teams after Deeney questioned Arsenal's bottle in a recent trip to Vicarage Road. So
For the first time.
Yeah, I mean, and that's
Kahunas.
Yeah, and somebody like Deeney, that physical. I mean, look what Calvert-Lewin did to them. I mean, in terms of the physicality, I mean, Deeney does that and double, and Deulofeu, Pereira, Decore, Capu. I mean, it's a very physically so you've got the skill of people like Pereira and Deulofeu combined with the robustness of Capu and Decore. Ben Foster's back in goal. I mean, I wouldn't back Arsenal here at 11-10. I mean, it's in the middle of a really big Europa League fixtures as well. I mean, even if Arsenal win, I think I can safely say Saturday now they'll be better 11-10 shots away from home between now and the end of the season.
Okay, Liam, what about yourself?
Well, I would be tempted to oppose Arsenal, but it depends on which Gunners team show up. As Mark says, we haven't really seen them show up on the road this season that much. So I think, backing goals again could be the way to go. I like the look of both teams to score and over 2.5 goals. Wagers on both teams to score and over 2.5 goals has landed in each of Watford's last 6 league matches. They can be, sensational going forwards, likes of Deeney, Gray and Deulofeu, depending on which combination Javi Gracia opts for, we'll see. But, both of these teams are exciting in the final third, but I think they do have those sort of defensive blunders in them at the back. Arsenal, the only Premier League side not to keep a clean sheet away from home this season, and it could be a touch of fatigue from Thursday, but I think I'll play it a bit safe and go with both teams score over 2.5 goals.
Get this far into the season not having a away clean sheet for a top 6 team. I mean, the manager has changed. That must be the players. I mean, the attitude of them to not defending properly. What they did at Tottenham, away to Tottenham in the North London derby, they really defended well. I don't know why they can't bring that attitude to every game that they play.
Did they go 17 games unbeaten, Arsenal?
Most of those games. I'm not sure they did. It was this mythical Europa League. They were racking up these Thursday nights when nobody was watching, and it built up. But even in the Europa League, they still lost away to Bate Borisov and Rennes. I mean, that has to be an attitude issue, and that's not an easy one to solve. And I think Unai Emery's done a good job, but the summer's a big one for Arsenal, just to get that mentality right, Well,
I was going to ask you, forget this season, almost an impossible question. Arsenal next year, where do you think they're going to be competing?
I think they'll be competing for top 4. If Chelsea do get a transfer ban, I think they'll finish 6th, because I think it'll be really difficult for them. And then it'll just be, Tottenham, Arsenal, Man United playing for 2 spots. I'd probably say top 4, because, I'm not sure about Solskjaer's appointment, long term at Manchester United. So, they might get top 4 this season, but, you need, at some stage, if you want to take that real big step, you need to be able to perform away as well as at home. Because you can't just turn up every other week.
Okay, well, there you go. The lads are both against Arsenal here in the studio. Right, and let's get the boys' best bets at the weekend.
This will not be beaten.
Well, thankfully, we're not turning Japanese. For anyone who's heard the US Masters podcast, that was Mr. Palmer, of course. And best bet of the weekend, Mark?
My naps have been cursed lately, and the latest one was Swindon getting done in the 90th minute against Yeovil. I'm going to go for Notts County, draw or win. So on the double chance market, away to Crewe. Notts County in big relegation trouble, but they've only lost 1 of their last 5. A lot of their sort of recent performances have actually been quite good since they changed the shape of their squad. I think that they're fighting for their lives down at the bottom. Crewe, 2 wins in 6. Artell, their coach, absolutely slaughtered them after they won one of those games, 6-1 against Crawley. And all the reports said that Crawley was a better team for most of that first half as well, before a just bizarre sort of sequence of goals from Crewe. Didn't turn up in last week's derby defeat against Port Vale. It's a good opportunity, I think, for Notts County to avoid defeat.
Double chance.
Yeah, because Crewe are around about the 11 to 10 shot to win the game. I think they're a lay. Okay,
Liam?
Slightly obscure one, but this price just kind of leapt out at me. Strasbourg to beat Gongomp in the French top flight at about evens. Strasbourg denied PSG the chance to win the league title with their 2-2 draw in the capital last time out. They've also picked up points against Lyon and Lille, and they've just generally had a very good season. These 2 teams, interestingly, did just recently meet in the League Cup final, and Strasbourg prevailed on penalties in that game. But that was a different mentality to that one. Gongomp rooted to the foot of the table. They've just been absolutely dire in the league this season. I think Strasbourg, trying to achieve that sort of high top 7 finish, I think they'll be quite comfortable winners in that game. So about evens, that is.
About evens. Emmy, I'm going to ask you, have you managed to dig a price out for that one?
Strasbourg are 10 to 11 there.
10 to 11. Notts County double chance?
8 to 11 there.
And then complete the treble for us, please. So
I like Aston Villa at 5 to 6 here. Villa have obviously won their last 7 games and are playing their best football this season. It was pretty impressive during the week that they had to cope with. They missed an early penalty, they were goal down, and they had Tyrone Mings sent off, who's been one of their best players recently, and they still won comfortably. I think Villa at the moment, there's very few teams, and there's probably no team in the Championship I wouldn't back Villa against it. At home especially, and I think 5 to 6 still underrates them. Even playing a Bristol City side who have played well lately, I think there's a class gap between the sides that the market quite doesn't fully reflect.
Okay, what does the treble pay? We got that?
The treble pays just over 5 to 1.
Just over 5 to 1. Excellent. Right, thank you, gentlemen, for your time and expertise. Do listen out for our racing postcast over the weekend. Bruce will be back next week. Do please rate, review and subscribe the Racing Post postcast. Until next week, goodbye.
Everything is better when it's bigger. Paddy Power's Same Game Multi allows you to combine a number of selections from a single match into one big bet. Check out the Same Game Multi tab and get building your bet. Terms and conditions apply. 18+, begambleaware.org.